the federal law actually states very clearly that state governments cannot tax tribal gaming. So there was a lot of resistance by the state to signing compacts with the tribes if they didn't have a piece of the action. Because of course they were afraid that the casinos might undermine their lucrative lottery business, for example. They're in the gaming business already as a state government. They didn't want the tribes to undermine that and not have to sort of make reparations. So that was one concern. Certainly you have other gaming interests in California that were concerned and that were collaborating against tribes. For example, the horse racing industry. Again, worried that people might not go to the races anymore if they could go to a casino. Card rooms, of course, also felt that this was a competitor that they didn't want to have to contend with. And probably the biggest opposition came from Nevada. At that time, you know, estimates were that 35% of Las Vegas, in particular, gaming revenue came from Californians. So they were probably the biggest opponent to tribal gaming here in California. So each government had its own special interest in what tribes were or were not going to be allowed to do. And certainly even the local governments, I mean cities and counties, many times had no contact whatsoever with the tribes in their area. Maybe they didn't even know about them because they were just small collections of people who, you know, were getting federal dollars. They didn't really make claims on city or county services because they had this federal relationship. But once it became clear that they might have this opportunity, this opportunity to offer gaming, then all of a sudden they also felt left out. They're like, well, now you're going to offer this. We can't stop you. We can't tax you. We're afraid that our services are going to be needed to help you, and yet you don't have to pay us for them. So there was also a lot of tension with the tribal governments expanding in any way. Of course, local landowners were concerned. I mean, so there were a lot of stakeholders that frankly, not only had real concerns, many of these were real concerns that had to be negotiated in different memoranda of understanding with local governments or the state compact with the state and the tribe. But you know, there were also just sort of neighbor to neighbor agreements that had to be done, and you know, I think ultimately it's worked out very well for everybody, but there were definitely a lot of opponents at the time.